Everybody, welcome to Fruitful Trees. Today I'm back at Tropical Acres Farms. I come here often, and there's Alex behind me. We are going to be looking at a pretty unique thing that's happening here with the mango trees. There's a good chance this year we'll have a second bloom on many of the trees. If you get trees from Alex and Tropical Acres Farms, that means the season might last longer and he's going to have more mangoes than usual. It's already going to be a great mango season, it looks like. Even without this second bloom. But as Alex was explaining, and we'll be explaining today, the trees, the weather is so dry here, so many of the trees are having a second bloom, and this doesn't happen often. So we're going to hear from Alex about it. So I'm going to put his contact information and his link below the video, Tropical Acres Farms. It's really exciting. So here is Alex. All right, everybody, here we are at Tropical Acres Farms, and we're testing it on microphone. We're here with Alex. Say hello, Alex. How you doing?
Hi.
All right, so you called me to come on out here today for a special thing happening at your farm. So tell everybody the exciting thing that doesn't happen often.
So here in South Florida, when we get bloom from mango trees, the overwhelming majority of the time that bloom is triggered by cold weather stress. And this is true in a lot of other subtropical areas of the world. Particularly in central and northern India, Pakistan, northern Mexico, places like that. Mangoes are very dependent on cool weather, temperatures under 60 degrees Fahrenheit occurring over a specified period of time to trigger them to flower, to give them enough stress to put them into a reproductive cycle. But in the tropics and tropical latitudes, places like Jamaica or maybe the Philippines, where they don't really get cold weather, they're very dependent on drought stress to make them flower. And certain mangoes can respond to drought stress with bloom, and some just don't. Particularly mangoes that were selected in places like northern India and Pakistan, but even some mangoes that were selected here in Florida and in other parts of the US. So we're going to look at some of the trees that are at this point flowering off of purely drought stress. And the reason we know that is because we have not had any really significant cold weather here since the middle part of January. So we are now, what's today, Paul, March 15th or 16th?
15th. Yeah.
Okay, so we're in the middle of March, and we went pretty much all of February with nothing but warm weather. And pretty much this whole month so far with nothing but warm weather. We're about to get a cool front. I guess we're starting to get one now. But it's been extremely dry. In fact, until today, it actually rained quite a bit today. But for weeks, really months at this point, we've gone with basically zero rainfall here. And even though it's our dry season right now here in South Florida, historically speaking, we would still expect a certain amount of rainfall, and we're well below even that rainfall total. So what we're starting to see here in this orchard and elsewhere is some bloom occurring on certain varieties due to this drought that we've been experiencing, absent of cool weather. So we're going to look at a few varieties that this is occurring on. This tree behind me here is a candy corn mango. This tree has behaved kind of as a dwarf for us. It was probably planted like almost 6 years ago now. So it's a pretty dwarfish tree, but it did have some bloom from the cool weather that we had in January. And that bloom, as you can see, has resulted in pretty significant fruit set here and on other parts of the canopy. But the whole tree didn't bloom. Part of it did. Now what we see is we've got some panicles coming out of here on the tree that have already emerged. Flowers opening up, and we have more emerging now. You can see here, these are going to be flower panicles all over the tree. So this tree is going to end up with a pretty complete bloom. If it sets fruit off of these emerging panicles, it'll have a pretty complete crop. Now we'll see how much it holds on to, but this is exciting to see. And we'll look at a few other varieties that have this going on, and we'll look at some trees where this can't happen or can't seem to happen because they were selected at a much higher latitude and they are dependent on that cold weather stress, and they didn't get enough cold weather to flower this year. So that's candy corn. We'll go
Okay.
look at a few others.
Let me ask you a
Oh,
couple
yeah.
questions. So does the extra bloom mean a double crop?
Yeah, so what's going to happen is the fruit on these panicles is already at least pea size or marble size in some cases, larger. So that fruit is going to be maturing around 90 days from now, or it's going to start to mature 90 to 110 days. Some might take a little longer than that. These panicles haven't even set fruit yet, and they have to go through the same cycle of developing those little mangoes. So those mangoes that occur off of these panicles are going to be probably close to a month behind these fruit here, which means two distinct crops. They're not going to blend together. Most likely you're going to find that there's going to be some ripe mangoes available from some of these trees that have these two blooms, and then there'll be a period where they won't have any mature fruit, spanning at least several weeks, if not a month or longer, and then they'll have ripe fruit again. So
Very cool. Now, so what about things like powdery mildew? When the bloom comes back, can that come back as well?
absolutely, you can still get disease on flowers that emerge later than when the primary bloom occurs. However, what we've observed is there's usually a little less of that because there is not as much bloom around, there's not as much pathogen, it would seem. So even though they can definitely still get powdery mildew, still can get anthracnose and bacterial spot, what we've found is that some of this emergent bloom doesn't get it as frequently. So we're not going to be out here trying to control disease on those emerging panicles right now from this drought stress. We're just going to let them kind of do whatever they'll do. And if they get disease, then too bad. But
now, if they do get a disease, can it affect the mangoes that are already on there, or is it already past that?
The powdery mildew is the big problem here. And that's really primarily a disease of the bloom. I mean, it can affect the foliage and stuff too, but if our emerging panicles get powdery mildew, it's not going to affect the fruit that's already set, so we don't really need to worry about that.
Okay. Now, here for South Florida, how common is it that this is happening?
It's rare. So, like I mentioned, even in our dry season here, we would still expect some amount of rainfall, a certain amount of inches per month. And mangoes are super sensitive to differences in rainfall. And so the drought stress that they experience to get them to flower usually has to be pretty significant. I mean, we're talking more than a month without rain, often several months. And that's actually kind of what we got here, was a span of several months with almost zero rain. If we got any rain, it was very insignificant. So pretty extreme dry weather resulted in a situation where we have more trees throwing this kind of drought stress bloom than we would typically see. You know, we certainly didn't see this the last several years. So a little bit of a rare event, and that's why we're trying to document it here in the middle of March.
So to simplify it, when it's extremely dry like this, some varieties will do this.
Yes, some will and some won't.
Okay,
so,
we'll look at some of
and
those
we'll look
today.
at some of the ones that won't, and we'll talk about some of those too.
Now, before we move from this, corn candy, we've done many videos. We've never really discussed this, and you say it's a dwarf tree.
Yeah, this tree has behaved like a dwarf for us. It's a mango tree that came from Gary Zill's nursery, Zill High Performance Plants. They produced a small number of them. I don't remember how many it was, but it wasn't a lot. It was a tree that was growing at the nursery. It wasn't from Gary's breeding project. I remember that. And it's got like what we would call like an Indo-Chinese type flavor, very sweet mango, but it's been a long time, and you know, we'll see how it turns out here for us. It's a mango that has flowered for us last year, but did not hold on to fruit. So this will be, assuming it holds on to this fruit, let's hope, the first crop that we get from it, and we can start to kind of report a little bit on it to people. You know, people who tried it seem to like the ones that, at least the ones that ripen properly. So like, you know, but the only source was that seedling tree that was growing at the nursery. It was like a volunteer seedling. I don't think it was intentionally planted. The mangoes that came out of Gary's breeding project that had numbers, those were intentionally planted and well documented and recorded. This was not. So, but it's kind of cool how the growth habit has been very dwarfish, and we'll see how the fruit come out on this guy this year. We'll have more to say about it, hopefully by the end of the year. Anyway.
Okay, so one more question. So for those people that do spray their trees and are in the process of doing that now or have already done that, can the spraying affect the new bloom? In terms of, they're not spraying for the new bloom, but you know, there's certain times to spray things. Like if they spray something now for their current bloom, can it affect this new bloom that's coming out in a negative way?
Oh, you're talking about the fruit here?
Yes.
Yeah, they could. I mean, if they applied like a really strong application of copper, for example, and not all coppers will do this, but like the really strong commercial ones can burn flowers, because I've seen it, so I've done it. So like, yes. So that's a good point. If you were trying to keep anthracnose off of these little fruits, we're not really trying to at this point because like we don't get much anthracnose here. But let's imagine we were further inland right now. Let's imagine we were in Loxahatchee or Indiantown or you know, Immokalee or something like that, and we're trying to keep anthracnose from destroying our sensitive little fruits. We would need to be a little careful about applying like certain fungicides, well, particularly copper fungicides, directly to these flowers.
Okay.
We'd want to try to avoid that.
Okay.
Now, certain coppers, like low quality coppers, I would say, probably aren't going to hurt open bloom. So, but I mean, it depends on, you know, what application rate you're making and that sort of thing. So that would be the main concern if you were trying to stop disease on your small fruitlets and you've got, you know, open bloom right next to your small fruitlets on another part of the tree.
All right, well, let's see other trees, and thank you. And everybody, as you're listening, I hope the mic's working fine. This is our new experiment, so it seems to be sounding fine, so hopefully it's good.
Over here.
So now Alex could walk way in front of me and we could hear him like he's right next to me.
Yeah. By the way, check out these rosy golds.
Wow.
I thought this was worth seeing. These are really pretty.
Wow.
And look at that cluster we got. Now, this little tree is a temporary tree, so it might come out of the ground after this year, but it's already fruited quite a bit. And it's got multiple crops on it as well.
Wow.
So
How old is this tree?
Oh, I don't know. We probably planted this in 2018 or something.
Wow.
So it's been in the ground for about 5 years.
So a tree like this, if it did come out of the ground, this is one of the ones that would be for sale next year, possibly? Or...
Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't take it out until after the season.
Sure.
But at this point, it is coming in contact with this tree next to it. So, you know, we could probably leave it one more year. It'd be okay. We'll decide later.
Well, while we're here, so are these 16 feet with 8 in the middle like you normally do? Okay, great.
Yeah,
good,
so
good.
The permanent trees are 16 feet apart.
Great
but
example.
I mean, we've gotten fruit off of this for years. This is not this tree's first crop. So we've gotten plenty of mangoes from this, regardless of whether we remove it this year or not. So,
and that's an early one of the earliest mangoes. Is that doing this with the bloom, or any of your rosy golds have early bloom on it this year?
You know, our rosy golds flowered so completely from the bloom stress that they had already, or cold weather stress that they had already received, that there's not much canopy for them to flower off of at this point. But probably if we looked closely at them, we'd find a few that are. But you know, there's other varieties that we'll look at that actually have a fairly significant bloom right now from drought stress.
Yes, and if anyone's watching this video, I've been here many times. If you're looking for several mango trees and you want an early season one, this is definitely one you want to get. Always produces early. Tastes really great when you pick them at the right time. And yeah, definitely recommend it. Check out Alex's website because he does have those for sale. Not this one in the ground, but he has 3 gallons.
We're going to be grafting
gallons.
more of those.
Yes, that's a great one.
There's a lot of interest in rosy gold right now.
All right, so this is exciting to be here. We're almost. When are you opening for customers?
I think we're going to probably start selling mangoes by appointment in April. Like, you know, posting them on our website for pickup the next day. And then I hope by the middle or towards the end of May, we should have enough fruit to open the fruit stand for daily hours. And we're going to have a lot of fruit this year, so we're looking forward to it.
And your boxes online, your box mixes?
Yep, we'll be posting all that stuff like normal, and we should have a pretty good supply of mangoes. Let's just hope the weather cooperates with us. No major thunderstorms or hurricanes, you never know. Lots of stuff can get blown off before it's ready, and so hopefully, let's hope for a dry summer. Actually, that's what I would like, because that means better fruit quality. So, okay,
Alright.
so let's see. Oh, here's a mango. Okay, this one's flowering. So this is a Sessi Love. Okay, this is a Florida variety that is becoming quite popular. So our other Sessi Loves in the ground had pretty full blooms from the cold weather. This one did not, but had a partial bloom instead. And so this one's got fruit from the first bloom it had, but now it's starting to flower from the drought stress. And it's actually got quite a bit of panicles starting to come out. So this is another tree that started out with what would have been just a partial crop, and it's going to end up actually with a pretty full crop. On this side, Paul, you can see some more of them. See, these are all starting to come out now.
Yeah. Wow.
Pretty significant. This might end up being close to a full bloom off of drought stress. So, but we're going to get 2 crops off of this Sessi Love tree. So that's great to see. Behind us here is a variety called Mahmood Vikarabad. This is a variety from southern India, and it had a little bit of early bloom, but now it's got quite a bit of more bloom coming out now. So another tree that looks like it can flower off of drought stress in addition to cold weather.
So let me ask you,
because initially I was like, oh man, we're not going to get any of that one because it's a really awesome mango. Paul, you tried it with me once.
Yes.
And now it's like looking like it's actually going to have enough bloom to have a crop.
So let me ask you a question. Of my mango trees, there's one of them, my fruit cocktail, for example, had really bad powdery mildew and not too many flowers or fruit set. So is there a chance if I see new flowers that it might get some fruit?
Yeah, if you see new flowers coming out of it, there's absolutely a chance.
Great.
So yeah, and if it doesn't have any, well, I mean, like, if you can, try to keep the powdery mildew off of it, and you should be okay. You should end up with some fruit.
Sure.
Hopefully, if it produces enough female flowers. Okay, let's look at a couple more.
So I know you got 300 varieties here. How many trees total do you have?
Maybe around 1,000, but
1,000.
we haven't counted in a while. So.
You didn't take a tree census?
Yeah, we need to do some kind of a survey and see. Okay, so this is another dwarf variety. This is called Saigon. David Fairchild's original Saigon, supposedly. So I got this from Richard Campbell years ago, back when Richard was still at Fairchild. And this tree is another one that looks like it's going to put out a majority bloom off of the drought stress. So, and there's a few mangoes on it from the first bloom, but I mean, it looks like most of it is actually going to be from this secondary bloom. And this is another real dwarf tree. It's like a bush. This was planted in 2017 or 18.
So what's a normal season for that?
Probably like late June through July. It's like a mid-season mango, I think. It's very good. It's like a Indo-Chinese hybrid type flavor. They introduced Saigon from French Indochina in 1902 or something like that, around 1900. David Fairchild sent them over, and then they produced all these seedlings from it. So, but I think this was like the variety they initially sent. And so Richard Campbell, I think, took budwood from the tree at the Kampong, David Fairchild's old house, and he brought it to Fairchild Gardens collection. And I remember seeing that tree there a long time ago, and it wasn't that big. You could tell it was dwarfish, but it had nice sized fruit on it, and it was loaded with mangoes. It was so impressive, I just had to get budwood from it. And so this is our little tree from that budwood collection that I did there. And we've produced some trees for people. So actually there's some people here in South Florida growing it, and it's like a really nice Indo-Chinese hybrid type flavor. Kind of wish I had more of them actually, but like we've only been evaluating it for a few years. So let's take a look at another one that's producing quite a bit of bloom right now.
So while we're going, if somebody has a tree that normally is a late bloomer, like let's say uh, M4, let's say. Normally it's a late mango. Does that mean this season's going to be even later? I guess if the tree gets a late bloom?
If it gets a late bloom, yes. I mean, like you could potentially see them starting to mature in September or something like that if that happened. I don't know that any of our M4 trees have that late bloom. I think their bloom pretty much came during the primary bloom. But if you've got a late season mango throwing late bloom, like this Neelam over here has some flowers that are starting to open up on one panicle up there, that's probably going to be October mango. For a variety like that takes a really long time to ripen its fruit. So, okay, let's look at Cooklam Prom, because this has a really nice secondary bloom. Okay, this is this is Cooklam Prong. This is like a dwarfish variety from Thailand. It would be shorter, except the graft on this tree that we purchased years ago was kind of high. It's grown quite slowly. I think we obtained this tree, let's see, this would have been planted in 2017, but I think we already had it for a couple of years before then. I think we might have obtained this tree in like 2015 or something like that, or I don't know. We've had this tree for close to 7 years. This tree is probably close to 8 years old at this point and not very big. But at any rate, and they tend to grow slowly when we graft them too. It's throwing quite a bit of bloom, almost like a full bloom off of dry weather. So this is pretty impressive too. And this mango has kind of, we call it a Thai flavor. It's actually a little better than some of the Thai mangoes that I'm used to eating, like Nam Doc Mai and stuff like that. I like this thing better as far as Thai varieties go. So, and it's a nice compact tree, so you can kind of envision it being in like a small yard space. But great to see that it can throw this.
No, I don't see any set fruit on it. Did it not do well the first time?
It didn't. No, it didn't. It did actually bloom a little bit.
Here's a tiny one.
Yeah, you can see a few here. Here, Paul, over here, on this side of the tree. You can see these guys.
Got you.
Okay, but like otherwise, most of it is emerging panicles or flowers that are just opening up.
All right.
So that's pretty cool to see. And then this tree is like a combination of a few varieties. But this one here, this is Fernandine from Goa in southern India. And that's flowering. I'm kind of surprised. But hopefully we'll get some fruit off of that, because that will be the first time that variety is fruited here. So what else? I'm trying to think if there's some other ones.
So there's more than one variety on that tree?
Yeah, so part of this is Golden Queen, and the Golden Queen has fruit set. A lot of fruit set, actually. But the part that's flowering there is Fernandine. So I was going to top work this whole tree because I didn't want to keep the Golden Queen. We have 2 of them. Didn't think I needed to. And then people kept ordering the trees, so I decided to keep the part that was still Golden Queen around just to take budwood from this, as well as the other Golden Queen tree.
Where's it from?
Golden Queen is from Taiwan. Its real name is Jin Huang mango, but it got that Golden Queen name slapped on it as a marketing thing. And it's also called Q Yai in Thailand, but it's the same mango. So it's, as far as I can tell. Anyway, so that's one. And I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I know there's other ones here that have bloom coming out that I've observed just in the last week or so. But what we can do is go look at some that I guarantee you, and I haven't checked in the last few days or anything, but I guarantee you they will not have any bloom coming out of them, because they just can't bloom off of drought stress. They need cold weather. So we'll go look at some varieties from northern India. So over here I've got a dashiri somewhere.
Now, how do you determine that they definitely won't? By just observation, or just because where they come from?
Part of it is observation, and part of it is just they've been brought to the tropics. So dashiri just doesn't fruit when it's taken the tropical latitudes. I don't know if anybody's tried to force it to bloom with potassium nitrate, or paclobutrazol or one of those things, but and maybe they have, I don't know. But I think it would be extremely rare for one of those things to flower in like a place like the Philippines or something like that. But let's go look at our dashiri anyway. And we'll look at another mango from northern India that's substantially larger than this tree. So to kind of illustrate just how hard it is for some of these varieties to flower here. So this is the dashiri. This tree's actually grown kind of slow for us, even though I don't think that it's a dwarf tree in northern India. But there is not a sign of activity on this whole thing. I don't think it's ever thrown any bloom at all in the years that we've had it. And it just didn't get enough cold weather to excite it this year. And the drought wasn't going to do anything for it either. So all we have is just a bunch of dormant tips, and at some point it'll flush vegetative growth. But that may not be for several months. And
Now, is that a candidate to do top work?
No. Definitely not going to top work it. It can fruit in Florida. It's just the tree's going to have to get older, and it's going to have to experience colder winters. But Gary Zill's dashiri has fruited before. The tree at Fairchild Farm fruited sometimes. I'm not saying this is going to fruit annually, every year, but at some point we'll get fruit from it. And the main value it has for us beyond fruit is that there's a lot of people who want to grow this tree, many of them outside of South Florida, people in California or in Central Florida. A lot of people from northern India adore the dashiri mango. So we need to keep it around for budwood. And having just one is okay. If I had more than one, then yes, I would consider top working the second one, knowing that its chances of fruiting here are not very high. But someday we'll get fruit from this tree, I'm confident. But we'll go look at another one. It will take us a bit of a walk,
okay.
But one that I know will not bloom at this point. So another one of these northern Indian ones that can't seem to flower here. Oh, by the way, here's another one that's starting to flower again. This is Tess Pollock. Tess Pollock did set fruit off of its first bloom, but you can see it's probably going to be mixed bloom, honestly, but you can see that some of this stuff that's coming out here is inflorescence. Like here, look. So it flowered off of this tip. Actually, it set a fruit here, but you can see this coming out is going to be bloom. So might be mixed stuff, but it decided it didn't set enough fruit, I guess, on the first go around. And then it's got this stuff here that's like almost ready to go. So kind of a neat tree. But okay, let's keep going.
Tell everybody again, how many acres do you have here?
It's like 7 3/4 or something like that.
Okay.
I often call it 8, but it's more precisely something like that. This is Toledo mango from Cuba. That's flowering a little bit too.
What's it called?
Toledo.
Toledo.
And actually on this side of the tree there's quite a bit. So this is a mango that is from the Caribbean. It's from Cuba.
Okay, there's actually some fruits on it too.
Yeah. So there's some fruit set from the early bloom, but then it's getting the second bloom. Okay, this tree here. So this is a mango called Gilas from northern India. And this mango has nothing on it, not a single panicle, nothing. And I can probably safely predict that it will have nothing next year. And there's a very good chance I'll be right this well in advance, because it's never flowered for us. Someday, hopefully, we'll get something from it. It's supposed to be very good, but it was selected way up in one of the northern Indian states where they get temperatures in the 40s in the winter, like every night. And probably if we took this thing to California, or maybe even to like Lakeland or Tampa or something, we could get it to flower and fruit. Maybe even well in a place like Southern California. But here in West Palm Beach, where our winters have been pretty warm for a long time, this tree just doesn't get enough kick to get it to bloom, and the drought does nothing for it either. So that's just the way it is, and we're not going to get rid of this tree either. This is the only example we have of it, and there are people that want it, so we keep it around for the budwood, but maybe someday we'll get a fruit off of it too. We'll see.
All right.
So anyway, it's important to emphasize that most of the trees don't have this secondary bloom going on them now. So it's not like every single tree is doing this, but it's more than we would typically see at this point after the primary bloom has occurred. So most of the crop is going to come from that bloom that we had in January, February.
Great. What's you have any other trees in this area that you guarantee won't get it, or they
that won't flower?
Spread? Yeah.
Let me think. Is there anything over here that I can guarantee will not flower? Not off the top of my head. I can show you some stuff that is flowering, though, off of the secondary bloom over here.
This is the time you want your guarantee to be wrong, right?
Oh, I can guarantee that this small grow bud's not going to. I think. It has a little bit of a couple blooms came out of it, but this tree got pruned back a bit, and nothing's going to come out of these, I'm pretty confident. But this Namdok Mine number 4, look at all the planticles that are popping out of it. So these, again, like more tropical varieties. Namdok Mine number 4 is from Thailand. Actually, it's got fruit on it that's pretty close.
Wow.
So fruit at a lot of different things. Anyway, so there's a couple early ugly betties up in this tree.
Wow, there you go. Look at that. Wow.
Worth checking out. All right, so, but otherwise, that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you. Tell everybody the best way to contact you. I'll put your link below the video. Is that the best way to go to your website?
Yeah, go to our website. Has our contact information on it. You can email us at tropicalacresfarms@gmail.com. And you can also call our corporate phone, or you can send a text message on it. And we'll be happy to help you out. So check us out.
Great. All right, everybody. There it was. So much great information. I love coming here, and I love learning more, and I just love being around these trees. This place is amazing. The link's below the video, and good information. If you have mango trees and you're wondering why they're acting different this year than other years and you're in South Florida, and also maybe some of those other trees he mentioned, if you're in California or colder environments, maybe consider getting one of those from him. All right, everybody, put your comments or questions below. Thank you so much for subscribing and watching. Please share this with others that you think that might enjoy it. Until then, everybody, have a great day and keep growing.